Hello, my name is John M. Quick. I went on a quest so we could find out what are the best evidence-based ways to tell stories that inspire, influence, and transform our audiences. The principle of authentic representation states that stories simulate authentic human experiences while varying widely in terms of their superficial characteristics. We've heard stories of all kinds. Some have aliens in them and they're set thousands of years in the future. Some have dragons in them and they're set in fantasy worlds 1,000 years in the past. Some are stories from the American Revolution or from caveman times, or even from our own modern urban cities. The thing is, a lot of these characteristics of setting are superficial. They help build out the context for a specific instance of a story. But there's a common thread through all of these that's underlying the story. That's the authentic human experience. One time-tested formula that you've probably heard about before is the hero's journey. This is a certain pattern of a story arc that goes through multiple phases. Basically that a hero is in the everyday world, gets called out into a grand adventure, goes through many trials, eventually ends up succeeding, and returns back to that original world, improved and bringing some kind of gift. Here's a couple examples of where we see this same story arc, or the concept of a hero, being applied through different superficial characteristics. In Lord of the Rings, we have a fantasy world that's set in the medieval past. In Harry Potter, we also have a fantasy world, but it's set in the modern world. It's more of an urban style, and it could be happening today where people have magical abilities. Then look at something like Star Wars. That one's set way out in the future where everybody's in space and they're shooting each other with lasers and there's all kinds of different aliens and other creatures. But no matter what, whether it's Luke Skywalker or Frodo Baggins or Harry Potter, they're all going through an authentic experience of being a regular person and then being called in to transform themselves and become a hero to the world. The authentic experience remains the same, but the superficial characteristics are all over the place. One night I was sitting in a canteen in Penang, Malaysia. I was sweating from the stifling heat, and on top of that I was eating spicy soup and crispy fried duck. At one point in the meal, the server came by and asked if I wanted some biscuits to go along with it. I said, biscuits, what a fine idea. I'd love to have some biscuits to go with this meal. Well, time went on and on. I ended up finishing my whole meal, wondering why didn't those biscuits ever come? Finally, some 20 minutes later, my server returns and puts down a plate of cookies in front of me. I said, well, this is an interesting turn of events. Now I have cookies, no biscuits. So I turned to the guy next to me at the table adjacent, who's a local. I said, hey, looks like the said he was going to bring me biscuits, but now I've got a plate of cookies. The guy said, "Ah, sir, I'm afraid you're mistaken. These are biscuits." What happened here? Well, biscuits is a word for cookies in Malaysia. So clearly I was the one who was mistaken, not my server. I was thinking of the fluffy white bread things that we have over in the States. Well, once again, I had the experience of ordering something that I thought was one thing and only to find out that it was another. Do you remember a story I told before about ordering lemonade in England? Getting soda and only to find out that if I wanted lemonade, I had to order something else. Interestingly enough, whether I set the story in England, ordering lemonade, or I set the story in Malaysia, ordering biscuits, I've represented the same authentic experience with different superficial characteristics. It's the same exact experience. I was a foreigner in a different place, trying to ask for something and not knowing the proper way to do it. You can do the same thing with your stories. What matters is to identify that common thread of experience that goes through it. The other details, they don't matter that much. In fact, that's why a lot of storytellers sometimes exaggerate or embellish or make things a little bit more interesting when they tell them. Use good descriptions. Remove characters that aren't totally necessary. Add a little bit of interesting dialogue or an interesting character or some comic relief. Whatever it is, find the best way to share that experience with your audience. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out my book, The Power of Storytelling. There you'll get a whole workbook on how to craft your own stories using these principles. You can always get in touch with me, and I'll help you through a coaching process to make better stories that you can use to inspire, engage, and transform the lives of others.